Hello and welcome to Bags of Action. My name's Steve and this is a 5-minute review of Project Power from 2020. Now this is a Netflix film with an all-star cast including Jamie Foxx, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Dominique Fishback, Courtney B. Vance, Rodrigo Santoro, Amy Landecker, Machine Gun Kelly, Tate Fletcher and Alan Moldano. The story follows the appearance of superpowers, or rather superpowered drugs on the streets of New Orleans. There's this new pill that for 5 minutes gives someone a superpower. The problem is you don't know what kind of power it's going to give a person and whether it's going to be a good one, a bad one, or possibly a lethal one. There is a chance that it could kill someone. It's so dangerous and they have a bad reaction. So some people take it for a high for 5 minutes because they get to do something like have invisibility, or they can fly, or they have frost powers or something like that. The story begins with an unusual place in that there's a young girl called Robin who appears to be a dealer, except that the person who is backing her up is a guy called Frank, who turns out to be a New Orleans cop, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and he is actually taking the pill himself so that he has an even playing field when he goes out and chases down criminals who suddenly develop these powers. There's a scene early on in the film where there's a bank robbery and there's a guy in there with powers breaking the rules. Frank takes a pill and then chases this guy down across the city. It's a really good action scene, really enjoyed it, but obviously taking the pill gets him into trouble with his captain. In parallel with this, we have the story of Art, who through a series of flashbacks find out that he's searching for his daughter, who has some sort of connection to this new epidemic. And to begin with, you really don't know if he's a good guy or not, because he has very brutal methods. He takes down a number of people, he kills a number of dealers and those involved with distributing the drug. As the story develops, we find out more about him and his background and his family life and the reason that he is so tough on those who are pushing this drug. It's a minor spoiler to say that, in fact, the drug is being tested on New Orleans as a sort of staging ground before the people who are producing it take it even wider, and they just want to show others the potential of what this new street drug can do. There's a much larger story wrapped around this to do with a conspiracy, but I won't spoil that, and it has ties into government and some intelligence agencies. The story is written by Matson Tomlin. He's not a name I'm familiar with, but he recently wrote the screenplay for this and also the Batman film, which is coming in 2021, which is slightly concerning only because there are a number of problems with this story. I can understand what they're attempting to do after the swath of 23 Marvel films and DC and other types of things. They're attempting to bring superpowers into the real world and give it a much more realistic spin. And I applaud them for the attempt. However, the screenplay has a number of issues. The non-linear storytelling doesn't really bother me, but it kind of telegraphs some things for later on in the story. It jumps around at times, so you're not really sure what is going on, and you're constantly racing to catch up. It seems to struggle with tone at times because it's going for very earnest and sympathetic and emotional scenes, and in the next moment there's something really brutal and violent and dirty, and it's given a commentary on something to do in society, especially with poverty and that sort of thing in New Orleans. There's mention of the responsibility of the authorities and how they didn't help out this time, so the streets have to take care of themselves to deal with this new epidemic. And obviously they're referring to Hurricane Katrina and so on, and how the city had to look after itself in the aftermath of that disaster. So there are parallels to real-world events to try and ground this film. Okay, so focusing on the positives of things that I did like in the film, the cast is really good. They really do the best with what they're given. I think Jamie Foxx is really interesting in this film because, to begin with, his role is quite ambiguous. You don't really know which side he's on, and he plays it very close to his chest. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, he's very earnest in his role and is believable as somebody who cares about his city and is willing to do whatever is necessary to protect it, even if it means breaking the rules, as others are doing all around him. I've not seen Dominique Fishback in something before, but I really liked her in this. She plays a convincing teenager who has problems at home and struggling with school, but is conflicted and is trying to do the best there again in a difficult situation with issues at home, school, and finding a job and earning money. The special effects in this film are fantastic. The use of superpowers are really interesting. There's only a couple of times when it goes slightly over the top, and it almost enters the realm of looking a bit too much like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which suffered from that aspect where they push things just a bit too far. There's some good use of bullet time, which we've seen for the last 20 years. They use that here to good effect. And I like the idea that if you do get a superpower, you don't know what it's going to be because it all depends upon each person. And there's also the chance that it could kill you the first time you take the drug, which is obviously a huge problem for some people that are just not willing to take that risk. As you might expect, the film builds towards quite a large climax with a lot of action right at the end and explosions, and there's a different kind of scene to what they've done in a different location, so I quite enjoyed that, and it uses the different characters in interesting ways. It's a little bit predictable, but as I said, it's not a bad film, it's just something that suffers from a few different problems to do with the screenplay because they can't seem to decide what they want to do with it or what they actually want to talk about. Even though the film is called Project Power and is talking about the drug because that's what it's called, and superpowers and so on, it's obviously also talking about those with money and power and influence experimenting on those who have none of it, referring to the ordinary people and so on. So there's that in parallel as well. The film is under 2 hours, so I don't think it's too long, but I think there is a really good screenplay and a really good idea hiding in here somewhere if it could just have been given a bit more clarity. As it stands at present, it's not bad, so I enjoyed it, but it was just a bit so-so for me. So for all of those reasons, I'm going to give it a very generous 3 bags of action out of 5 and say, do you agree with me? Let me know. Have you seen Project Power? Get in touch with us in all of the usual ways. Subscribe to this channel and comment and leave a message below. You can contact us via email, Facebook group, on Twitter as well. We have new episodes coming out every week, so don't forget to subscribe and keep an eye out for those. If you like what we do, you can support us on Ko-fi, and thanks for listening.